everybody, and welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast. My name is James Dixon, and from my home studio again, I wish you a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune in to our podcast from today. And I say back in the home studio. Last week, I had the very nice opportunity to go down to the Business Design Centre in London as a guest of the Association of Event Venues. The AEV Conference 2021 was back in person as a live event, and we went down there and recorded a few episodes of the Event Industry News podcast from the Business Design Centre. And depending on when they get published, you may have already heard of those. You may have listened to some already, or they may be due out. So I should take a moment to say thank you to everyone who was involved in setting that up for us. And do tune into those episodes from the AEV conference. And on to today's episode. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking MEETYOO, specifically with two of their, senior management team. And let's get them onto the show now. We welcome Tony Kula, who's the CEO, and Tim Gutsche. I hope I've got that correct, Tim. We did discuss it off air. Gutsche, I hope, is the right pronunciation. Their product lead. MEETYOO is a brand and a platform that I'm sure many of the Event Industry News podcast followers will have come across before. I've certainly seen it in the last few months as well, with my involvement in Event Tech Live and with various other things that have been going on. It's a brand that I'm familiar with, but I don't know a lot about. And hopefully on the podcast today, and by the end of today's episode, we'll know a lot more about these guys and what happens there. So Tim and Tony, thank you for joining the podcast. First of all, it's good to see you both.
Hi, James. Thank you.
Hi, James. Thanks for the invitation.
Not a problem at all. And it's always good to have two guests on as well, because it means we have plenty of content and I can take a nice relaxed step back and let you guys do all the talking. Tony, let's come to you first of all. MEETYOO. I get sent podcast notes in advance of these recordings, and I always like to have a look at the websites and any background information on the people that I'm going to be speaking to. And the first thing I noticed there is you were started in 1999 as a company. Now, for a lot of technology platforms that are in the events industry, the vast majority of the ones that I've come across have only come around really in the last few years. Going right back to 1999, this must make you one of the sort of longest serving operators in this marketplace.
That's true, and not. So we started 99, but actually we started with conferencing services. So I'm in the event industry, if you want, for a very long time. But these were audio conference services, investor relation calls, things like that. And but in 2016, I acquired a company which is called UB Event, and we added this to our portfolio. In since then, but that company was already 5 years in the market. So we're looking back in total now in 10 years in digital events, and definitely much more than most of our competitors. So in a way, we are veterans in what we're doing, but I have to admit, I'm not doing this since 1999. So.
I was very honest with you, but nonetheless, that surely must give you some advantages in the sense that you already had a background experience of delivering, conferences via a technological platform, be it telephone or otherwise. So there was already a foundation of knowledge and understanding, wasn't there, which is critical to making these modern digital event platforms a success.
Absolutely. First of all, for us, it was always important that it comes down to services. And so people, also when they're using simple audio conferencing, they need help. Also, it's very simple. You need just to dial into a number, but you need operators, and we always we built that infrastructure and everything, and then we added the software component. So it's just, I would say, we just changed the way the information is transported in a much more modern way with our software today. But running like virtual events was something that we did since we have the company.
And I suppose then that nobody could have foreseen what happened last year, when you acquired a tech platform and you gave yourselves the ability as a business to be able to run hybrid and virtual events online. As terrible as last year was for a lot of people for many, many different reasons, when it comes to digital event platforms and providers of those, it was boom time for everybody, wasn't it? That's the reality.
It was, yeah.
From a product development point of view, from a customer service point of view, how have the last 12 months been for you?
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. So I think maybe I hand over to Tim how he saw it from his perspective in terms of the product, but I can also talk a little bit about it. Tim, go on.
So yeah, the past 12 months were crazy. Like especially last year and the beginning of this year, there was not a single day where we didn't break a record, which we broke a day before. So even last week we established new records on our platform in terms of concurrent users, streaming participants, and all these very critical factors. So the last year we really heavily worked on scaling up our still very service oriented and managed service business, which is always a human touch, which is always a personal, direct connection to the customer. We worked hard to scale that up to the level where we are right now, but also the customers they came with different demands. So the industry and the expectation towards what is a digital event changed dramatically. So because obviously there were a lot more competitors in the marketplace, and all of them pushed in with their unique idea of what a digital event is. And we, of course, have our idea of what a digital event is. So we were confronted with a big innovation push from the market. But we also seen that the market itself, like maybe went 10 years into the future. Because like before this tragedy happened, we were talking about like, yeah, you need a stable internet connection, you need a modern browser, like all these sort of discussions. And like some of these problems are now resolved because like the sort of event population shifted towards another era with new browsers, new internet connections. They were aware of these. So like for me, from the product perspective, the whole market digitized, and this is very, very good because right now we don't need to take care of digitizing the market. We can piggyback onto the infrastructure every business has laid out for their participants, and it's very good because now we can also enable other sort of technology, which was in the past always struggling to push to our market because the market was not ready, and this is very, very fascinating.
Something that I've been interested in and watched carefully in the last 12 months is it's important, I think, that any product, technology or otherwise, has an identity, and that the creator of that service or that product has confidence and faith in what they see as the route forward and the opportunity for their clients. Which is why sometimes when I see platforms that say we're completely adaptable, we can morph and shift and change into whatever our clients want them to be, I think the counter argument to that is, well, you know, you must not have a huge amount of faith or an identity in what you want to do, because, you know, there are lots of products out there, and what organizers and clients should be doing is taking the time to analyze what is unique about each particular platform. And as a platform operator, how important is it that you do have some flexibility in there to be able to tailor to clients' needs, but also to retain an identity of what MEETYOO is, to show that you've got confidence and faith in your product?
So for me, this a very good example is that there's like, I see the event industry and the providers in it sort of in three different, very distinctive, let's say, look and feels of platform. So there's like the hyper immersive ones, which try to work with VR, AR. You walk around. It's very similar to a game. And on the other edge of the spectrum, there's like the more website-like event providers. If you enter the platform, it looks like a website, sometimes more like a social media type of platform. And we are sort of in the middle. We want to convey a very immersive experience to our participants without confusing them with too much 3D, with too much like getting around with WASD. So, and also like including them in terms of technology. So we are trying to bridge the gap between easy to use, everybody can use it regardless of browser technology, but also very immersive. And I think this is the first very important distinguishing point when you look at different event providers. And we stick to our immersive experience, but within that immersive experience, we are very flexible. So if a customer comes and says, hey, listen, I mean, you got the idea of a main hall, but right now I want another color in the main hall. I want my poster there, video there. I want an avatar here. That's totally fine. We are flexible in a way. But if a customer comes and says, I don't want a main hall, I want a website, this also for us means a no, because we have this immersive experience and we really want to use it, because we know that events is something fascinating for the participants. I mean, in physical events, organizers spend a lot of money to make a very, very good and unique impression on participants. Not all events are like that, but some. And we try to give the opportunity in the digital space to convey a unique experience, which can also be highly branded towards the organizer.
And you've touched on an important subject here, in respect of things like trade shows and conventions. To replicate the show floor in a digital environment has been the source of a lot of headaches for platform providers and for organizers, from an engagement point of view. How much success have you been able to track with your analytics, the data that you've generated, particularly in the last 12 months, about how you've been able to actually generate and develop engagement in these virtual show floors, which has been so difficult for some other providers?
So in general, I would say that engagement in a digital event is just different than on a physical event. Like the internet lives off people staying anonymous. In fact, just a little venture down memory lane. One of the earliest cases we had when digital events were not that big were career fairs, because career fairs offer the advantage of being anonymous. You're not spotted on a career fair by maybe another colleague saying, "Hey, what, you're looking for a job?" This is a unique advantage of the internet, and I think today we hear that a lot. Organizers says, "Yeah, I had a lot of customers and participants, but like the engagement was not very high." And like we offer all sorts of engagement: chat, video, breakouts, mix and mingle, streaming, like really like all aspects of communication itself. But I think communication in the internet is just not as natural as on site. So we try with different means and methods to bring the participants to do more interaction. And of course, the exhibitors and the organizers, this is their KPI, right? So we give them all tools we have, and we co-develop with them new tools in order to engage with participants. But I think overall, the willingness of the participants you acquire for a digital event is not as high as for a physical event, because I think the barrier to enter a digital event is just lower than for a physical event. And if you really decide to go on a physical event, you're also ready to do all these interaction and also engaging. And at the end of the day, you're at a show floor on a physical event, and there's an exhibitor sees you and approaches you and says, "Hey, how are you? Like, are you interested?" Like, how awkward is it to just turn around and walk away? But you can do it in the digital space. So maybe it's just people can act more natural in the digital space, which for the exhibitor looks like less interaction.
And it's interesting because we're still learning so much. We've had to cram a lot of knowledge and information and understanding into a relatively short period of time. Without the pandemic, to get the industry to where it sits today in terms of their understanding of digital and virtual and hybrid event platforms would have taken probably another decade, I think. And what's happened is that the pandemic has forced everybody down a narrow channel, and everyone's had their hand forced to learn quickly, to adapt quickly, which is, as I said, I think it's great for the technology industries because it's brought forward those opportunities and rush development. But what we are still doing, and the point I'm making is that we're still learning. We still don't have that full understanding yet of how people behave in these digital platforms compared to life. And what we've done so far is try and recreate what happens in real life just in an online space. And the reality is, longer term, once we've had a chance to assess it properly, is that can't ever be replicated. So we have to find other ways of monitoring and understanding. It's going to be completely new levels of engagement, I think.
Yes, indeed. So like, we're digitizing. We are transforming what is analog into a digital space, but we are not, as of now, thinking digital first, digital native. Like what was not there in a physical world, what can now be there here. So this is something, but I think this is like a global perspective. Like globally, we're still in the digitization phase and not thinking about like digital native experiences. This is not only to events, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think that there is a place for physical events. There are things you cannot replicate in a digital domain.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've mentioned some on this podcast before. If you want to rewind sort of 3 months, anybody listening today to some of the episodes that we did, even at the start of this year, when we were sort of still in the pandemic, but we were I came back on the podcast in January this year and started to talk to people about experiences during the pandemic. And there's some really good stuff if you go back and reference what people are talking about, certain types of event that have to take place face to face. And I'll not go through them all because there's a list, and we'll put up a link to one of those episodes for people to reference. Tony, if I can come to you, related to the customer experience and the client relationship side of things, picking up on this point about organizers and clients understanding of these platforms, they obviously need a certain level of support from the provider, i.e. you, in order to deliver what they want. But how important is it as well that the client really gets to understand the platform? Presumably you work with clients who are repeat customers, they're coming to you for multiple events. How important has it been for you to develop your clients' knowledge of your platform?
Okay, so I have many things that I want to say, but once Tim is getting warm, he's hard to stop. First of all, going back like a little bit to your first question, how were the last 12 months? This is important to me to say. It's been, as an entrepreneur, it's been an extraordinary experience. So when in your life do you have the right product at the right time? So, and the things that you learned, it's not only about the growth, how much stress we can support as a company and everything. I mean, we grew tremendously in terms of people and everything, the organization, everything, but also it's been a tremendous evolution in terms of product. So it's not only boosting digitization in terms of acceptance, like we're using now video conference, which is totally normal, but when it started, we had, even in teleconferencing, we had a peak, and then the pandemic killed the telephone conference. So everyone is used to do video conferencing as our first way to do a meeting today. And with digital events, what we saw, and I think that refers a little bit to what Tim just mentioned, is most of the customers had the feeling they should somehow try to replicate what they know from their analog exhibitions and events and everything into the digital space. So we benefited from them. Most of them, we tried to rebuild main halls and exhibition floors and everything. So they like to have a very like one-on-one experience from what they know. And that was good for the beginning. But then people realized, and that also led to some kind of unfulfilled expectations in terms of engagement. You don't have a cocktail hour. I mean, you can try, you can send vouchers, you can do things, you can eat in front of your PC, but it's not the same thing. It's not the energy that you have when you have a speaker on stage. It's not the same when you're meeting after the event on the show floor, on the bar after the show floor, and all these things. So people have changed these expectations. So they know, and I think a very important thing is the data side of our business. So the data that you can generate with these type of exhibitions, you don't have like the whole thing is from the first invitation and then putting the data into your CRM system, you don't have like a break. So you're not going in the physical world. So you can just do all these things. And on the other side, I'm full with you both, is that we need physical meetings. That is, we're human beings. So this is a big point for myself to meet people in person. But we see there's a large shift. And but after this very first intense 12 months, we saw like a bit of consolidation. People also saw the limits of digital events and everything. This year, summer, everyone wanted to go. We were like the same in video conferencing. We couldn't do anymore. It's like the type of Zoom fatigue. We had like a kind of event fatigue. We wanted to meet in person. So, but now, especially these days, with the numbers rising again, and the pandemic and everything, there is a benefit. So for us, it's now important to deliver the real value that is giving what digital can give, and that is not so much. So we define engagement a little bit. I know everyone is running after that. Everyone is very much focused on this hybrid trend, which we're not big fans of, because I think if you're running a good hybrid event, in fact, you're running two events. You're doing a digital event plus an on-site event. And we say both have, I mean, you have to know that. So, and everything else, if you're saying hybrid is just putting it on the camera and streaming out from the physical event. So if you don't have a digital narrative, if you don't write like, if you don't have a story for your digital event, if you treat these like two classes of audiences, so one is on-site and the other is the digital, it will not work. So we see that these are two different type of events that you're doing, and the customers understand it. So I personally believe in the future there will be a mix. So there will be the meetings more VIP, more important. You will value that higher as a person, where you meet in person, and then you will have the mass of the meetings. You will probably be digital in the future, and also from my last statement, please. Also from a sustainability standpoint, I mean, this is a blessing to the world if we're stopping to travel half of the planet just to attend I don't know, a 4 or 6 hour meeting. So I think can do things that are more meaningful. So this is our personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that you've said that, because you're absolutely right to mention the sustainability aspect of it. It's such an important outcome from the push towards digital in the last 12 months and the need to go digital is that one of the biggest benefits is the sustainability aspect, is the amount of travel and transport that we will ultimately be able to reduce as a global industry. The global events industry must be responsible for, I don't know what, I'm sure there are statistics out there and somebody could tell me, but if you think about people traveling to a medical or a pharmaceutical or a science convention in San Francisco or Tokyo or in Frankfurt, you know, the people come from all over the world with hundreds of flights, and all of the costs, the financial implications, the sustainability implications, it has a huge benefit to that. And so I'm pleased that you mentioned that today. But the hybrid point as well that you make, that there's one thing that has become apparent, which is that a lot of event organizers think that a hybrid event has to happen at the same time. They think that because, oh right, we're going to run a hybrid event this year, we're going to have the live event and the online event, but they still are trapped in this linear way of thinking that they have to happen at the same time. They have to coincide. And I think that's something in the next 2 years we'll hopefully see a bit of a breakaway from, and organizers realizing actually it doesn't have to be at the same time. We can run our physical event at one point in the year, and we can actually then expand our community by doing the hybrid, you know, the online element at a totally different time of year.
And the nice thing, James, is that your digital venue stays. So for a physical event, you always have to hire for a certain date, the venue and everything. But if you think digital, and we see also, we like to use that events as a platform. You can have that all year long. You can have live elements, and then you can have like the accumulation or the highlight of the season can be then the physical event. It's exactly like you say, it doesn't have to be everything on the same time, as long as you can engage your audience. And that will, I think, change the perception that we had, that it really has to be on the same time. And then with all the complexity that you're adding through a digital component, if you want to do it right. Yeah, I think there will be, but it's interesting to see what will come in the next month. So
That's a fascinating point that you made. I don't think anybody's mentioned that on the podcast yet, is this idea that when you run a physical event, you have to pay for that space. You know, if you're there for 2 days, you might have to pay for it for 3 days because you have your setup, and possibly 4 days, depending on how much equipment there is, you may have to take it all down. So you have that cost of renting the physical space for that period of time, which is a huge cost to the organizer.
Yes.
And you're right to point out that with these virtual spaces and digital spaces, they effectively have a venue all year round. They could do something
depending
every day.
on what type of pricing model you use, but we are using that more and more, that large enterprise customers, they have the digital space, their digital home, not to be mixed up with a website. It is really something where, first of all, it's like before the event is after event, and everything. You have all the media there that you're generating. All the content can be stored there. You can like have a pre-event, which is digital, and then have a physical. But yeah, it's we try to sell this more like events as a service, and you have a platform that is there all the time.
Fantastic. Tim, as we sort of get towards the end of time on today's episode, I just want to go back to some of the points that you made earlier on, relating to sort of breaking records. You mentioned earlier on in the podcast that, you know, that there was a period of time where every day you were breaking a new record. And I'm keen to maybe ask specifically about what some of those records was. Were they, you know, engagement, headline figures of people attending? What were the sort of the records on a day-to-day basis that specifically you can mention?
So at first it was like Tony mentioned, even our telephone conferencing product like skyrocketed because like in the beginning the core need was communicate digitally. Like not everybody had like a laptop yet, maybe just like phone was widely dispersed. So we saw a steep increase in telephone conferencing. This was at the beginning very, very interesting. And then afterwards, we just saw that the customers are transitioning to the other services. So the records we broke were like concurrent attendees during a webcast or a digital event, but also registrants. Just last week we had an event with 50K registrants. We like. And like over the last year, we invested also heavily in scaling out our infrastructure to house that many participants. We also onboarded partners, and the partners broke records. And then all of a sudden, there were events where, like from 1 minute to another, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 new participants enter the platform. Like there were days with like a new record in amount of events. I think. I'm not sure, but maybe it was like sort of like around 15 events a day. And if every of these 15 events opens the gate at like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. CET, right? Then we had a peak in overall users concurrent on the platform, not only one stream, but multiple events. And this also over time, because as Tony said, like digital events stay open after the live character is sort of over, after the agenda is finished. So we like in all sort of usage factors, we broke records.
Fantastic.
Number of events, number of registered users, new users, online users, concurrent users, chats. We had an event where we even broke the record for like chat messages. So yeah.
But maybe to add some numbers, when before the pandemic, and we did that for a couple of years, it was normal to us. We had like a handful of project managers. We have now 35. We had like 2-3 events a week, and that was a strong week, not during summertime. We have now 10-15 large events. I mean, not self-service event, large supported events a day during this month. So it's really the massive amount of things that have shifted to digital space and last year we had to stop selling in September, like all the major platform providers, because you just didn't have enough manpower to support these events.
You've actually just preempted my next question, Tony, there, which is,
Mhm.
as a business operator, how much pressure has the sudden expansion put on you as an operator from a staffing, a capacity point of view, even things like, capacities within your own server spaces and things like that? Presumably you're having to make adaptations and expand almost on a daily basis.
We did. I think our people team was vital to the whole to scale this operation. So we couldn't be more thankful to our CPO and the team that we're having doing that. That was very important. On the other side, I think we wanted to speak a little bit about our product MEETYOO. And the idea for MEETYOO was to have a self-service product, which is in a way, of course, not doing the same things that we do with our flagship product. You have to use ready-made templates. Not everything can be changed. And just to for the market that was created in a way by Hopin, where you can do good events on your own. And this is how we started with MEETYOO, but it's still using the same signature features, which is our GDPR compliance, which is the flexibility in terms of the backgrounds and everything that you can choose to give this graphical aspect. You have the functionality of a booth and avatars and all these things. But and that came out more like out of a problem, because we didn't have enough project managers, and people said, okay, we want to do that on our own. We can do it on our own. We have experience. People, let's do small events on our own. And that is how we created MEETYOO, which is like in a way like our flagship product in a light version, where we shifted the work that we're doing for large customers to the customer, and it's subscription based, and he can use it as much. And there's where we see that people are using that like all year open platform. So they're changing, modifying, and doing new events as they like.
And that sounds to me like you're simply acknowledging the fact that, as much as there are organizations out there who may not have significant tech experience and don't have the capacity to manage a platform like this, there are equally other businesses out there with people who are technologically savvy. Maybe they've been managing their own websites for years internally. So actually being able to work on a platform like this is good for them. So it's helping both parties out, isn't it? It's reducing the pressure on you from a human resources perspective, and allowing that client to do what they want to do.
It is a different market on one side. And on the other side, we saw that within the last 18 months now, the traditional event planners, they became digital experts. I mean, they were planning physical events, but they had to survive somehow. And we see especially the younger ones, those who we hired most, they had a big appetite to transfer analog into digital, and they became expert. I mean, it's the self-service product is in a way, it's like with the wizard, but you have to understand. We always say it's important to understand an event, so it's not a programming language. So you can install an event if on MEETYOO, if you understand like how the event business goes. And and we saw that there was a lot of expertise created within the last 18 months, simply because they couldn't plan physical events. So and so what I'm saying is there's a lot of people that like to use that type of technology.
And what would have fascinated me, I'd have loved to have sort of been privy to conversations in event organization teams where you have these perhaps younger people in the team who are not as experienced in the live events world, who I think, and I suspect, all of a sudden were looked upon and called upon to actually help people who on paper have a more senior level and more experience in the live events world. But there's a lot of senior events people out there who are not as technologically advanced and don't have that intuitive understanding of things as the younger generation do. So it was, to me, I think that there was probably a great leveler within event organization teams as well of people.
I'm not blaming the older one, because I'm also old, so and I had to and for me it's more difficult to operate this than it is for Tim, which is like more intuitive in these type of things. But it's like you say, I think it's the mix. And by the way, we also see that there are also, so if I haven't been totally politically correct, also older guys that love to use the platform and everything. So yeah, I think the as I said, the main thing is that you need to have passion for events, and then you can do that.
Absolutely.
The challenges are also different. So for physical events, you have you have these physical stuffs, like people need to come in, build their booth the day before. You need a lot of logistics, hotels, flights, and this is not there in the digital domain. But there are other challenges in the digital domain which you will maybe not face in the physical. So it's also interesting how, as you say, this professional profile develops, like a digital event planner versus like the more traditional physical event planner. Yeah, so what I also want to say about MEETYOO is we're inviting everyone to our immersive platform with MEETYOO, and we are happy to get any feedback from experienced event organizers, what they think first of our way of looking at digital events, as I elaborated in the beginning, the immersive style. So yeah, MEETYOO was enabled due to the changes we needed to introduce in the last year, about scaling, about infrastructure, etc.
And I guess for anybody who's never used your platform, and for new customers potentially, MEETYOO is a great stepping stone in some respects. If they want to come in and have a look at that and get familiar with MEETYOO, then once their understanding of that is developed and they've run some events on there, it might be that their events grow, or they have other events where they require maybe that more increased level of interaction with you directly.
Yeah, so
absolutely. Go ahead.
so for me, MEETYOO is like our
entry point
has a big entry barrier. Okay, so it's not easy to look behind the barrier. With MEETYOO, we lower that. Everyone can start today, create an account, tinker around with the whole platform, even use all features for one month for free in the trial. And then maybe some things, some features are missing, insufficient. So, but I'm sure we can offer them in MEETYOO Pro. So we want to invite everyone into like the first step of our Garden of Eden. And then also like there's like a second level where you can
Tim, we should bring you into sales.
It's really
I didn't know that.
Like a first step to experience what we think why digital events are great. But it's not the last step. There's always another step, and maybe it's just lowering the entry barrier. And for all your listeners, if you register, there will be an email from me welcoming everyone to the platform. And I'm very, very happy to hear any feedback, to jump on calls with event experts that tell me what I need to learn about digital events.
And if I can add some selling stuff now to your speech here, is
please,
the first month is free, so you can run, if you're registering at a good point in time, you can even do your event for free. For us, it's more important to learn about customer behavior, because we're not a SaaS company. We're coming out of really of service software business, and so this is a totally new game, and so for us it's important. Everyone that is using that is highly welcome, because it's about learning and to see how can we improve the experience and all these things. Absolutely. And maybe to add one thing in terms of technology, why we have customers that are choosing us, is that, like most of the people that we see in our industry that have started within the last 1.5 years, they are using a lot of third-party things. In our tools, in all our technology stack is our IP. So we did that for 10 years. And so we don't use any different webcast tool. We haven't done any acquisitions and put it together like others, because it's normal. You can't build a big platform in 1.5 years. So and that is the difference. So I think we can deliver a slightly different experience. Everything is made from the same people, supported by the same people. And we also believe that one of the most important things in a digital event is stability. So, and this is what we're standing for.
Absolutely. If I'm right in saying, I'm going to pop some information up on the screen now. For anybody who's listening to today's podcast, hop over to eventindustrynews.com and check out the video version of this, because the link that we're putting up, I think, is where people need to go if they want to explore MEETYOO Go, and explore some of the things that Tim and Tony have been telling us about. MEETYOO, which is MEETYOO.digital. MEETYOO.digital is where you need to go if you want to find out a little bit more about the MEETYOO Go platform and some of the opportunities there. Of course, if you want to find out a little bit more about the company in general, MEETYOO.com is their main website, and I'm sure if you go to that, you will also be able to find your way through to the MEETYOO Go side of things. But MEETYOO.digital is where you need to go to have a look at this new MEETYOO Go platform that the guys have been talking about today. We've been joined on the Event Industry News podcast by Tony Kula, the CEO, and Tim Gutsche, product lead from MEETYOO. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining the podcast today. It's been great to talk to you.
Thanks, James.
Find out a little bit more about what you've been up to. Good luck with everything. I mean that genuinely. You know, we've all faced such a challenging time over the last 12 months, and out of anything as bad as this whole situation has been globally, good always comes from bad things like this. Opportunities are created, and as I said, I genuinely think it's forced everybody's knowledge and understanding, particularly in the digital realm, to actually explore what this can do for them. And it's sped everything up, as I said, by at least 10 years, maybe even more so. Do stay in touch. We'll keep up to speed with what you guys are doing, and as I said, good luck with everything. If you are watching today's podcast, as I said, on eventindustrynews.com already, well, hello to you. Don't forget that you can go to your chosen podcast platform and download audio versions and listen to audio versions of all of our podcasts. Of course, the opposite way is if you are already listening to us today whilst you are on your commute, or you're on your way to an event, or just taking some daily exercise, you can also go over and watch video versions of this via eventindustrynews.com, and you can tune in to all of the episodes that we've done for sort of 6 years or so now, and you can also check out the latest news, features and supplements that are on the website whilst you are there. Thanks to both of our guests today, to Tim and Tony from MEETYOO, who've joined me, James Dixon, on the Event Industry News podcast. It's been great to have you guys. We'll see you all on the next episode.
Thank you.